Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Good morning and welcome back to the lecture series on partition of India in print media and cinema. We are talking about home and nostalgia today. So, we are talking about how a nation is shaped through its negotiating fluid borders, its and the border lives constantly experiencing some sort of struggle. The lives at the borders are fraught with struggle, fraught with fluid existences. We had discussed about a short story, The Wild Geese Country by Amar Mitra, where we see this question of life across, how life and exchanges go on across the barbed wire, much needed exchange. So, people are actually trading something as common a commodity as Zandubam, and the border security force stands there indifferent, but actually also not opposing the people, not stopping the people, because it would be inhuman to call such transactions as smuggling. A kind of deal that sustains human existence. Constant identity politics between West Bengal and Bangladesh is visible, and it is available in the mainstream narrative since before the second half of the 20th century. If we look at Bengal, it was not even an organic whole which could give rise to the sense of being imagined as a nation in its full right. So, we see in this regard, we see a lot of cultural literary contributions, cultural and literary contributions being made by the novelists, by the scholars and activists who are pioneers of a peaceful bilateral relationship between Pakistan and India, India and Bangladesh. And so, through arts, through alternative pacifist possibilities, proposing such possibilities, these activists and artists are trying to imagine human relationships in a different way, through a different language than is offered by the discourse of nation and nationalism. They have a different language to offer through their poems, their writings, through stage acts, plays, through intercultural exchanges, and through scholarship. So, if we look at history, we see that Bengal's borders were actually redrawn 5 times between 5 times even before the India's partition. In 1947, the northwestern provinces were taken out of the presidency of Bengal in 1835, in which Arakan became part of Burma. 9 districts from the east had split off from Bengal and formed the province of Assam in 1874. The Chittagong and Chittagong Hill tracts were transferred from Bengal to Assam in 1892, and then the infamous Lord Curzon partition that resulted in the formation of East Bengal and Assam in 1905, and when this 1905 division was revoked in 1911, Bihar and Odisha were removed from Bengal's province. They had become separate states. So, Bangladesh itself marked a culmination of three immediate partitions. One, I mean, in 1905. So, with Bangladesh, with the formation of Bangladesh, we see Bengal actually mutating three times in history. Once in 1905, and then in 1947, and finally in 1971 with the Liberation War. So, what Leonard Gordon states here is I mean applicable to all victims of partition from both sides of the border. So, whether Hindu or Muslims, they actually have multiple identities. At different moments, members of both communities have had to make choices about their primary identifications and their nationalities, and this becomes very true in the case of the Bengalis, especially as I mean in the eastern side we saw an additional an additional face off between West Pakistan and East Pakistan, which led to the formation of Bangladesh. So, at every point the people have to define themselves, they have to realize which facet of their identity is more important than the other. For example, are they more Muslims than they are Bengalis? Are they Bangladeshis because they are not Indians, or they are Bangladeshis because they are not Pakistanis? So, whenever we become something, we also at the same time we also choose not to become something else. So, we become something through negating another possible way of being. So, which identification is more important? Is it an identity based on language, or is it an assertion of one's moving away from the Hindu caste system and caste grid and thereby becoming a Bengali Muslim? So, or is it a nationality that is primarily defined by Islamic world system, or something defined by one's pride for the mother tongue? So, all these things make the question of identity quite complicated. So, and Bangladesh has always been paranoid about its about this idea of reunification with the rest of Bengal, which is part of India, the Western Bengal, which according to the Bangladeshis would recreate the political contours of the British Raj, and we could say that the social grouping in as a country in terms of a specific language and a specific religion would be thereby deleted, it would be undermined, and it would cease to be. So, Latif notes that the irony is that it is the refugee ejected by one side and rejected by the other who straddles the two parts of Bengal in the restless wanderings of his mind across the man-made border. So, in this regard, when we talk of home and nostalgia, we need to look at this compilation of essays by Dakshinaranjan Bosu in 1975. It was these were like essays written by refugees serialized in a vernacular West Bengal newspaper called Jugantar 1950 onward, and later it became a book called Chere Asha Gram, or the abandoned village, and it was edited by Daksinaranjan Boshu in 1975. The Udvastus constantly look at Calcutta as a metropolitan dystopia, and they constantly see themselves in a state of exile. So, Bengal is imagined as a terrible beauty in these writings, in these nostalgic renditions. So, in this regard, Latif notes that the part is not whether the Bengal so imagined is utopian or not, but that the refugee mind feels compelled to evoke it to sustain its sense of self. Right. So, through this utopian homeland, one's self is actually reclaimed, a self that has been endangered, has been kind of has a self that has been has undergone different setback, is reclaimed through evocation of the utopian motherland. So, so refugee central to the idea of Bengal as a state of mind is because the refugee embodies its unity and integrity in the very act of losing his place in its geography. So, one can become a refugee only through not finding a permanent home or or a well ensconced position in the host land. So, refuginess is a state of mind, and its unity and integrity, its meaning is derived from an individual's state of not belonging anywhere, an individual's condition of statelessness. So, so early writers, early Bengali writers look at the land as in early Bengali writings, the land gave the narratives the impetus to turn imaginative gaze on the desires and assertions of the colonized people. So, we see that the land becomes a great source of inspiration in early writings, in early works. There is a way of looking at the land, and the land actually looks back, it gazes back, it has its own spirit, it is not a lifeless piece, it is not an inanimate existence as such. So, partition actually stopped short this process, the process of land being a source of inspiration in writings, in artworks, because partition had ascendered a land that had been together for centuries in the history. So, the project of nationalistic adumbrations of the decolonized identity was assundered with the partitioning of the land, which made which was also. So, with the partition, we see that there are certain rifts, certain stops and gaps in the imagination also. The imagination cannot continue beyond, even in artwork there is a kind of break, a kind of rupture which cannot be overcome very easily. So, Debjani Sengupta notes that narratives reject the politics of difference, and although their identities are tied to the making of boundaries, the early writings create spaces where different identities have the possibility of coming together and thereby forming a discursive space of meaning through motifs taken from the land. So, through artworks, a land can be reimagined. Different realities, different meanings are attributed to the land, which the colonizer, which the colonizer's gaze or the colonizer's imagination would not allow. So, a land is enabled in multiple ways. Its possibilities are kind of expanded through imaginations, through fictive interventions. So, land imagined as inclusive and hybrid, where the power of the politics of hate, be it the hate or the tension imposed through the colonial apparatus, or later on the intercommunal, inter-ethnic and interracial hatred are somehow thwarted. So through writings, through creativity, we see hatred can somehow be transcended, and there the creative writers offer they could be utopian, there could be utopian aspects attached to a given land, but that would allow one to come out of a dyadic rhetoric that was available in the real society. So, fictions, memoirs written often talk about the partition with special emphasis on locality and on belonging, a syncretic society, a society comprising mixed population from different communities who are able to live together with a significant sense of dignity, where human dignity is not really stripped. So, the geography and landscape of East and West Bengal become sites of meaning making, both in the context of the text and its historical setting. So, we see that this land that was initially surveyed by the colonizer, ruled by their imperial power, and then left divided after the British leave, becomes a site of post-colonial search for meanings, search for a humanity that has been left asunder and bruised, and thereby search for justice and equality and all such human values that have drained, that have somehow debilitated. So, the divided land becomes a site of contestation as well as recuperation for the people who, especially for the population, the section of people that are left on the wrong side of the border, and they are constantly trying to find a home, and thereby, so their inquiry, their association with the land is really very complicated. The ethical and moral implications of the concept of home in the wake of a divided land is very important, both in terms of land as a space, a given piece of territory, as well as in terms of grounds of in terms of the land being a ground of politics and history, especially for people that are a demographic minority. So, when there is this determined discourse of belonging elsewhere, apart from the place where one is physically located, the concepts of territoriality and finality of nation states are complicated in the South Asian context. The artworks therefore dislodge the binary oppositions of religion regarding the question of citizenship and belonging, and they seek new alignments, they concoct new possibilities, new identities which can be marked across the borders of the post-colonial nation states. So, they also question the cartographic lines. If not question, creative writing gives some license to play around with the lines that have been imposed from above. So, a lot of critics actually say that creative writings, creative writings are not grounded in reality. Its correspondence with facts is hardly there. But then the literary persons, the creative artists respond by saying that the formation of nation state, the Radcliffe line itself is also very arbitrary. So, something that is arbitrary but taken so seriously in the official discourse can be can be played around with, can be tampered through fiction, through fictional possibilities, new meanings being imbued to partition, which might not have any truth claim. So, the boundaries which are based on political hegemony problematize the idea of identity and homogeneity of a nation. Living on border signifies living where the spaces are overlapping. Homi Bhabha calls borders as a space of intervention emerging in the cultural interstices that introduces creative intervention into existence. So, who one is, where one would like to see oneself, and what one would like to call as a home, where else one's real home is. I mean, it's also through creativity, the question of human agency also becomes important. How humans are agents in calling a place as their home and others as not. It is a way of getting back at a history that has rendered ordinary people a status of puppets. So, through the writings, people try to overcome this legacy of trauma that the South Asians from 3 abutting countries now, India, Pakistan and Bangladesh, are dealing with. So, Abrim Hai calls border and the subjectivity of those positioned on the border as a crucial if ambiguous site of vital reconstruction, a position that is replete with contradictions and difficulty, and yet it also offers a regenerative promise. So, the lost Bengali Hindu's home has always been, like we see in Cheryasha Gram, the lost Bengali Hindu's home is the home of the Bengal nationality. The village in the 1880s nationalist writers had found the heart of Bengal. So, that is the quintessentialist, the quintessential village, which also lends lends legitimacy to the nationalist construction of home. So, in Cheryasha Gram or the abandoned village, the native village is pictured as both sacred and beautiful. Communal violence in this context, in the context of such a utopian village, is seen as an act of defilement, as a kind of anomaly, and it is a sacrilege against everything that is pious and beautiful in the Hindu Bengali understanding of what home is. I would once again it harkens back our discussion on Nilkantha Pakhir Khoje by Atin Bandyopadhyay. It is exactly depicting this village, where the Hindu zamindars domination over the Muslim peasant is normalized. The peasant protest is never a thing, never a possible thing in the horizon. So, the Muslim subordination, working as a landless tenant in the land and being a loyal servant at home is part of the a harmonious ecosystem. So, the partition becomes a cacophony, a kind of breakaway or a kind of disruption to this continued timeless, time immemorial picture of pristine beauty. So, the remembered village would derive some of its values from the associations with the nation's antiquity and anti-colonial struggle. So, we see how the village actually penetrates with the lattice of the nation and nation making. Often these villages, and we would continue talking about this in our next class, where we see many plays talking about one son from the middle class Hindu family joining the Swadeshi movement. A son, a male child who is otherwise a brilliant student, a promising scholar, quits education and sacrifices his life for the motherland. So, this is where the utopian village is connected with the larger happenings, with the anti-colonial struggles. So, the son becomes a martyr, and so village is also a miniatured mother that is producing these sons. And we have poem as the Polli Janani. So, the mother, the village is the mother and quintessential mother's figure, the rural mother's figure that inspires the son to that is worried about the son, but all the same proud to give a son for the nation's purpose. So, we see this is how the village, an otherwise remote and closed society of village, intersects with the national and nationalist happenings, with the anti-colonial struggles. And so, this actually reminds us of Jibanananda Das's poems that have been used for so many anti-colonial struggles. They have the heightened passion. Jibanananda Das's poems have heightened passion about the rural society. So, he says in Ruposhi Bangla, I have seen the face of Mother Bengal, so I do not want to see the rest of the world. It has also been criticized as a very parochial imagination, but something that is invested with something that is charged with a lot of sentimentality, a lot of it is highly and deeply emotionally, it is deeply invested with emotion and with the author's conviction. So, village in a state of idyllic present is invaded by the beast of communalism. It comes out of nowhere. The village life was a sleepy, humdrum life that was timelessly going on the way it was. This is how we see the picture of the village, and suddenly riots happen from nowhere. There is thereby we see no confession about the naturalized violence and hegemony and the naturalized caste gradations and job or task gradations, hierarchies in tasks that village life would very much support, which is why the minority sections would always remain poor peasants, whereas to the behest of the majority that were landlords and zamindars. So, Tagore, Bankim Chandra contribute to the urban imaginings of the countryside that had been developing 1880s onward. So, village is something seen as opposed to city. Village is pure, whereas city is degraded, full of degraded values. And so, village is a spiritual home for the urban Bengali. East Bengal riverine landscape, a landscape surrounded by rivers, bestows new poetic literary perspectives. We have similar imagination in Punjab, when Punjab is the rustic lands of Punjab are the rustic lands of Punjab are referred to as Sonedi Chiria. So, the golden bird that Punjab is. So, in the case of Bengal, we see Tagore as a landlord and Nirad C. Chaudhary as a salaried clerk, making numerous colonist impressions about of the rural Bengal. They are rooted in Calcutta, and they visit the countryside on for outings, for some visit. They in the capacity of an outsider to the village society, and they describe the natural scenery through studied sensibilities of European art and poetry. Their way of seeing, their perspectives are shaped through the Western prism of thought, the Western romanticism, especially in the case of Tagore. So, Sharat Chandra's Polli Samaj talks about, I mean, it is about 20th century emotionalism, nostalgic folksy image. So, from idyllic abodes of peace, the Bengali village is shown as a site of factionalism, and so Sharat Chandra actually makes the attempt to move away from romanticizing the village, moving away from romanticizing the village to also showing its casteist exploitations in stories such as Mahesh, and then the village being depicted by Sharat Chandra as obstacle to enlightenment, so that the village slowly becomes an ideal candidate for nationalist development work. From being the ideal to its fallacies being revealed and discussed, it becomes the ideal candidate for nationalist development work. So, like I said, Ruposhi Bangla by Jivanananda Das, Bengal the Beautiful, soared in popularity during the liberation war of Bangladesh. It inspired the freedom fighters in 1971. Similarly, Vibhutibhushan Bandyopadhyay's Pather Pachali show the Bengali village as marked by poverty, suffering, yet it also reflects on the tender sentiments of kinship and the innocence of the rural children. In this regard, we must also think of another work, Ashwini Shankit, which talks about the infamous Bengal famine, but it ends on a positive note, on a note of accommodating more people, and a transformed, and it ends with on a note of the desire of a transformed rural society, and this transformation being spearheaded by an educated, cultured upper caste man and his wife. So, the development being spearheaded by a poor Bhadra man and his wife, the values of his family. So, to end with, we see that Chere Asha Gram, the abandoned village, sketches certain cultural cliches, literary kitsch that are aimed at the shared nostalgia of the Bhadralok, urban Bhadralok Muslims participating in Hindu festivals, narratives that are made into narratives that are turned into images that have eternal values. So, we might also want to look at the image of the good Muslim and the bad Muslim, emerging from this narrative about the ideal Bengali village. We will talk more on this topic in our subsequent classes. Thank you.